was mostly just digging down to a certain depth to find iron, and then just digging out a space for a farm I plan to build. So the video is kind of boring, but also it's not. It's Minecraft. Enjoy. The man who kept moving at my window. About 2 years ago, I moved into a small apartment on the second floor. Everything was fine for the first few weeks. Quiet neighbours, nice view of the streets, nothing unusual. Then I started noticing a man standing on the sidewalk across from my building every few nights, always around 10 p.m. He'd just stand there, hands in his pockets, looking up at my window. At first I thought it was a coincidence, maybe he was waiting for someone. But then he started waving, not frantic or anything, just a slow, casual wave. I stopped opening my curtains at night. A week later I got curious and peeked through a tiny gap, and there he was again, waving. This time though, he wasn't on the sidewalk. He was in the parking lot right under my window. I told my landlord, who checked the cameras. The man never showed up on the footage, not once. I still don't know what creeps me out more, that he was there, or that maybe he wasn't.
Found out the guy I'm seeing is back on dating apps. Long story short, I, 22F, have been exclusively seeing this guy, 26M, for about 3 months. We started off as going with the flow, and it ended up flowing to where we both would date each other. We had a conversation a few days ago, and he told me he's not ready to commit because he feels as though he's not stable. We decided we aren't going to commit, but still see each other exclusively. We talked about what that looked like and agreed not to sleep with or entertain other people. I thought everything was good. Fast forward a day, I had a gut feeling that he was on the dating apps. I downloaded Hinge and made a fake profile, one that would grab his attention. I set the age range and location to where I would easily come across him. I scrolled through all of the guys. He's not there. Cool. Fast forward to today, I had the urge to look again. Lo and behold, he popped up. By his name, it says new here, so I assume he made it within the last few days. On my fake profile, I liked him. Within 30 minutes we matched. Bingo! He texted me first. I texted back and we talked for a bit. He gave me his number and Instagram. I said I'd text him, but I have an Android. I used a text now number that I have. Anyways, I continued texting him there. All while this is happening, he has me, real me lol, on delivered. He eventually texted back but was texting the fake girl, fake me lol, right away. I want to wait until I see him to confront him.
I found a stranger living in my attic. The detective said he may have been there for weeks, or months. So this happened just last week, just a few weeks ago, and I still don't know how to process it. I live alone in a small town just outside Portland, Oregon. It's one of those quiet, tree-covered neighborhoods where nothing crazy ever really happens. I moved in about 8 months ago after a breakup, hoping the peace and quiet would help me reset. For a while, everything was peaceful, until I started noticing small things out of place. A cereal box I was sure I finished, the TV remote in a different spot. At first I chalked it up to stress. Maybe I was just being forgetful. Then one night I came home from work later than usual. I was unlocking my front door. I heard a faint thump from inside. It sounded like it came from above. I froze. I stood there, key still in the lock, listening. Dead silence. I went inside cautiously, turned on all the lights on, checked every room, nothing. No signs of a break-in. I tried to brush it off, but something felt off. Fast forward 2 nights later, around 2 a.m, I woke up to what sounded like soft footsteps above me, in the attic. Heart pounding, I grabbed the baseball bat I keep next to my bed and went out to check. When I opened the attic door, I swear I felt a wave of cold air rush past me. The hair on my arm stood up. I climbed up and looked around with the flashlight. There was empty food wrappers, a sleeping bag, and most of all, photos of me, sleeping, cooking, watching TV. I ran out and called the cops immediately. They came, searched the place, and found a man still hiding behind small boxes. I didn't want to describe what he looked like, because honestly, it's giving me nightmares. He didn't say a word, just stared at me while they dragged him out. Later, the officers told me he might have been living up there for months, without me knowing. I said it's not the first time something like this has happened. I changed the locks, got cameras installed, but I haven't slept properly since. I'm sharing this partly to warn people. Check your attics, your basement, your crawl spaces.
The stranger who came to dinner and left with something that wasn't his. This happened last year, and I still can't fully explain it. But I swear it's true, and I need to get it off my chest. It was a quiet Friday evening. I had invited a few friends over for dinner. Nothing fancy, just homemade pasta and wine. It was the kind of gathering where we just catch up, tell old stories, and unwind. But this night was different. The evening started normally. My friend showed up. We talked about work, life, and random memories from high school. The usual. But right around dessert, things took a weird turn. At some point, there was a knock on the door. At first, I assumed it was someone delivering food, though I hadn't ordered any. But when I opened it, I found a man standing on my doorstep. He looked to be in his late 40s, tall, with sharp, dark features. He wore a long, weathered trench coat, the kind you only see in old movies. His eyes were strange deep, almost unsettling. There was something about his presence that felt off. But I chalked it up to my imagination. "Sorry to bother you," he said in a calm, almost rehearsed tone, "but I seem to have gotten lost on my way home. Would you mind if I used your phone? My car broke down a few miles away." I was about to decline instinctively. I mean, who just shows up on your doorstep in the middle of the night asking to use your phone? But then, I don't know why, I hesitated. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, or the soft, almost apologetic way he spoke. I let him in. We went inside, and he immediately asked for a glass of water. While I went to the kitchen, I glanced back at my friends, who were all clearly puzzled by this stranger. But nobody said anything. We were all too polite, I guess. When I handed him the water, he took it and sipped slowly, as though savoring it. Then he placed the glass down and said, "You know, I wasn't really lost." We all stopped talking at once. The way he said it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like something else. He continued, "I've been following you for a while now. Watching you." I thought he was joking, trying to be mysterious or something. But he didn't smile. He just stared at me, his dark eyes unblinking. I was starting to feel uncomfortable. "Excuse me," I said, laughing nervously. "What do you mean?" He paused, like he was waiting for everyone to settle in, to really listen. And then he said, "I've been watching you for years, but you didn't notice, did you?" The room went silent. I glanced at my friends, expecting them to laugh it off. But no one did. Everyone was just staring at the stranger, frozen in place. He continued, "I knew you'd invite me here tonight. I knew you'd let me in." He smiled faintly, a cold, unsettling smile. "You've been waiting for me, haven't you?" I don't remember what happened next exactly. My mind started to race, and everything felt blurry. The air in the room grew thicker, like the walls were closing in. The temperature seemed to drop, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, deeply wrong. Then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he stood up. He turned toward the door, and without a word, he left. Just like that. Out the door, into the night, and vanished. The door clicked shut behind him. We were all in shock, too stunned to speak. My friends started asking me if I knew who he was, but I didn't recognize him at all. No one did. And the weirdest part, my phone was missing from the table where I'd left it earlier. I went to check the front yard, the street, but there was no sign of him. The only thing that remained was a small black feather lying on the doormat. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, trying to make sense of what had happened. Why had he said he'd been following me for years? What did he mean by waiting for me? And then, the next day, the weirdest thing happened. I checked my phone, and I found a single text message. It was from an unknown number, and it simply said, "I'll be seeing you soon." I've tried to ignore it. I've tried to move on. But ever since that night, things haven't felt quite right. I'll hear strange noises at night, footsteps, whispers that sound like my name. And every now and then, I'll see that same black feather appearing on my doorstep or on my windowsill. I don't know who that man was or what he wanted, but I don't feel safe anymore.
Losing my dream woman while in prison. When I was 23 years old, the woman of my dreams finally became a reality. We evolved from friendship into relationship so organically. She wasn't with me for my money or status. We both just accepted each other for who we are when no one was around and loved each other deeply. I was in a position where I was looking at serving time, and I told her I would be going into prison eventually. I told her she didn't have to stay with me. I encouraged her not to. She resisted, she committed, she stuck with me all the way through my first year inside. She visited me every week until I sat in pre-sentencing. She mailed me hundreds of naughty photos while I was inside, with letters to keep the hope going. When it came to sentencing, I was given 7 years at that time. She didn't know that I wouldn't actually be inside for 7. We didn't fully understand the process of parole. When I transferred from jail to prison, I began my sentence. There became gaps in our communication because of phone times. Being a new guy on the block, it just takes time settling in. After 2 fights, I was moved into segregation, which really affected my communication with her. I remember it like it was yesterday. On New Year's Eve, I had phone time. I called her and she answered. She asked if I could call back because she was just getting out of the shower, and I said I can't. I only have 20 minutes. We exchanged the usual catching up convo, and I ended by asking her, "You're still there for me, right?" And there was a gap, a pause. I felt it before she ever responded. My throat thickened and my heart beat faster. She responded, "I don't know." I couldn't comprehend and asked, "What do you mean? What's going on? I love you. You said I could trust you. I trusted you," etc., etc. My phone time was up. I had to go back into my cell for another 23 hours a day. I spiraled. I was in segregation for probably 45 days until they opened up a new range of reintegration. I was able to get more phone calls and had small talk, etc. She explained to me that she went on a date with her boss. She admitted they kissed. Gravity never felt so heavy to me. Internally, I told myself, screw it, just feel this, and I allowed myself to slip into a depression. In a cold place, unsafe, with no substances, everything I planned to do to change my life for the better, because she was the one I wanted to live the rest of my life with. I did a lot of writing. I wrote my thoughts about her boss, what her life was going to become, etc. That was in 2011. She was a woman that would show respect to the man she was with. Like, she didn't lie about this new relationship. She respected me enough to tell me everything. But she couldn't wait anymore. Life on the outside goes on. Her boss provided her security, an idea of a future, family, kids, etc. Why wouldn't she go for that route? He spoiled her, took her travelling, spent money on her. He had bank for sure. She had 2 kids with him, a house, cars, managed the business, etc. She was set. Fast forward to 2023. She breaks the silence between us. She reaches out. She said everything that's true about me and what we had. I went back to read some of my pages I wrote about her. Interestingly enough, my personal pages were a matching image of how her life turned out to be. She regretted it leaving me. Her husband became abusive, an addict. She was filing for divorce. He had put hands on her. She would never leave the kids alone with him, really, and there was no intimacy. She lived for her kids now, and that was her focus. I didn't entertain the fantasy of us getting back together, but I expressed a lot of growth and pains I had to go through. She expressed how sorry she was, and how I was the only man in her life ever to treat her the way she deserved, accept her for who she was. We covered a lot of topics over a period of 2 or 3 months until it got to the point where she had to cut off communications again. It didn't feel as bad as the first time, to be honest. I had no regrets. Of course, it sucked hearing how much she was abused and mistreated. On the other hand, it was crazy how I wrote the story for her, unfortunately. It gave me a bit of closure. I had been single for a few years before, during, and after our brief reconnection. I don't know what's in store for the future. A friend of mine found the story so compelling, she wrote a short story on it, and it changed some themes and characters, so it isn't an exact match. I submitted it for a school project, and it's getting published. Pretty unique. The book I never found. There's this girl in my chemistry class I've quietly admired for weeks. She always sat across the room, far enough that our eyes had to across a small field of desks in daylight before they met, but somehow they always did. Every now and then, I'd catch a glimpse of her between buildings or see her walking through the halls, and for a moment it felt like the universe was setting the stage for something I didn't yet have the courage to play out. But tonight felt different. The thought of not doing anything, of just letting the silence stretch over, finally felt heavier than the fear itself. So I did what I do when I can't trust my own instincts. I prayed, and I asked for the courage to simply be myself. That's how I came up with the plan. A mix of sincerity, nerves, and movie logic. I'd accidentally run into her at the library and ask for her help finding a book called Let's Fall in Love. I even remembered the code for it. I wanted it to be clever, subtle, something that would make her smile without needing to explain the whole thing. And it actually worked for a second. I turned a corner on the third floor and there she was. She looked up at me, surprised but open, like maybe she'd been caught in the same orbit. I asked her for help and she lit up, genuinely excited to search for it. I asked her name and what she had been studying. I could feel my heart stuttering through every word. I was so excited and nervous. Then the moment cracked. The number I'd recognized was wrong. One number off. When she typed it in, the catalogue showed nothing. No result, she said, glancing at me with a polite smile that tried to soften the awkwardness. My stomach dropped. I laughed it off, said I'd probably just find it myself. I thanked her, said goodbye, even mentioned that we shared a chemistry class, as if that would somehow tether me to the moment for a bit longer. But it didn't. By the time I found the right book and worked up the nerve to go back, she was gone. Just gone. I stood there for a while, holding a book I never really meant to read, wondering if maybe this was the universe way of teaching me that timing is its own kind of chemistry, equal parts reaction, chance, and failure. So yeah, maybe my plan failed, but for a few minutes I got to speak to the girl across the room, and maybe that's enough for tonight.
My parents have always favoured my sister over me, and I finally realised it's broken me more than I ever wanted to admit. I, 22M, grew up in a house where love always seemed to have conditions. I have one sibling, a younger sister named Emily, 19F, and from the time we were old enough to walk and talk, it was clear she was the favourite. Everyone in our extended family could see it. Everyone except my parents, who still insist they treat us the same. When we were little, it didn't feel like a big deal. Emily was cute, bubbly, always smiling, the kind of kid who could charm anyone in 10 seconds. I was quieter, more reserved. I liked to read, draw, and build stuff. She liked attention, and she always got it. My mom would fawn over her outfits, take 100 pictures before school, and post them online. For me, it was just, go stand next to your sister so I can get one picture of you both. Birthdays were the first thing I noticed. Emily's birthdays were events, big parties, decorations, piles of gifts, everyone singing, family coming from out of town. My birthdays were quieter. A small cake from the grocery store and maybe a gift or two if my parents remembered. I remember being 10 and asking for a bike. They said money was tight. 2 weeks later, Emily got a brand new pink scooter just because she'd been so good lately. I remember watching her ride it around the driveway while my mom cheered and took photos. I just sat on the porch and tried not to cry. As we got older, the pattern never changed. It just got more subtle, more painful. Emily got praised for everything, no matter how small. If she got a B on a test, my parents would tell her how proud they were. If I got an A, my dad would just nod and say, "That's what we expect from you." When Emily messed something up, it was always someone else's fault or she's still learning. When I made a mistake, it was you need to start being more responsible. I remember one time in middle school, I got an art award for a drawing that got featured in a local exhibit. My mom said she couldn't make it to the event because she had to take Emily to her dance practice. My dad said he was too tired from work. I ended up standing there alone, watching other parents take pictures with their kids, holding flowers. I told myself it didn't matter, but it did. It always did. High school made the gap even wider. Emily joined dance teams, and my parents poured thousands into costumes, makeup, hotel stays, and travel for competitions. When I wanted to join the basketball team, I needed new shoes. My dad told me, sports are expensive, and you should be focusing on school anyway. He always said that I should be grateful that they weren't pushing me into anything. What he meant was, we don't care enough to support you. She failed her driver's test twice. They laughed it off and said, she's just nervous. When I failed mine once, my dad told me I was irresponsible and needed to get my act together. At 16, I got a job bagging groceries to save for a car. I worked weekends, after school, during breaks. I was so proud of myself when I finally bought a used 1998 Honda Civic. When Emily turned 16, they bought her a brand new Toyota Corolla. It's safer for her, they said. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, because by that point, I'd learned that being upset only made me the problem. The thing that broke me the most was when she crashed that same Corolla about 6 months later because she was texting and driving. Totally wrecked it. My parents' reaction? It's okay, sweetie. We're just glad you're safe. A couple of months later, she had another new car in the driveway. When I told my mom my Civic was having engine trouble and I couldn't afford repairs, she said, you need to learn how to manage your money better. I just said okay and went back to my room. That was the night I realized how little I really mattered to them. When I got accepted into college, I told my parents and they said, that's great. How are you planning to pay for it? No excitement. No congratulations. When Emily got into college this year, they threw her a whole party, decorations, food, relatives coming over, champagne. They made a slideshow of her photos growing up and posted it online with the caption, our baby girl is going places. I watched from the corner, pretending I was fine, but I was shaking inside. I graduated college this past May. I was the first in our family to ever earn a degree. I invited my parents months in advance, sent them the date, the time, everything. They said they'd try to make it. The day came, and I looked for them in the crowd. They weren't there. I walked across that stage, hearing everyone else's families cheering, and all I could think was how empty the room felt. Later that night, my mom texted me, sorry we couldn't come. We were exhausted from helping Emily move into her new apartment. No congratulations. No, we're proud of you. Just that. I sat on my bed and cried for the first time in years. It wasn't even sadness at that point. It was just this deep, hollow feeling. A few weeks later, my mom called to tell me they were having a family dinner to celebrate Emily getting into some special program at her college. I told her I couldn't make it because I had to work late. She sighed and said, you could make time if it mattered to you. That was it. Something in me snapped. I told her everything. Years of frustration and pain came out all at once. I told her how I felt invisible my entire life, how they've always treated Emily like she could do no wrong, and how every achievement of mine has been brushed aside like it was nothing. I told her I was tired of pretending it didn't hurt anymore. She got defensive immediately. Told me I was twisting things and that they love both their kids equally. My dad joined in, saying, you've always been so sensitive. You need to grow up and stop keeping score. That's the line they always use when they're guilty, stop keeping score. As if acknowledging pain is petty, I hung up the phone and sat there for a long time. Then I packed a bag, called a friend, and moved into a small apartment closer to work. My parents called me dramatic and ungrateful, said I was breaking the family apart. But for the first time, I didn't care. I wasn't leaving out of anger, I was leaving for peace. It's been a few months now. I'm still healing, still unpacking all the ways that kind of childhood messes with your head. You start believing that love has to be earned, that you have to constantly prove your worth just to deserve attention. I'm in therapy now, and for the first time, I'm starting to believe that maybe I wasn't the problem. Maybe I was just born into a family that only had enough space for one favorite. The irony is, a few days after I moved out, Emily texted me. She said, they're freaking out about you. They keep saying you're being dramatic, but honestly, I get it. That one message meant more than anything my parents have ever said to me. I don't hate my family. I don't even think they realize what they've done. But I can't keep living my life waiting for their validation. I used to think if I worked hard enough, achieved enough, or was just good enough, they'd finally see me. But that moment never comes. It never will. So I've decided to stop waiting for them to love me the way I needed. I'm learning to love myself instead.
I might have met a vampire when I was a kid, and I still remember her scent. Take this with a pound of salt. I understand this is crazy and probably my brain doing weird things. So yes, I know this probably all means nothing, but this has been in my brain for so long I have to get it out. When I was in 2nd grade, I rode the bus to and from school with my older brother, and no particular memories stand out, but a few related to this girl, Tina. Since my brother is a couple of years older than me, he sat towards the back of the bus while I sat in the middle, and a couple random people would sit next to me in the mornings towards the beginning of the year, until people found the person they wanted to sit next to for the whole year. One day, this girl I had never seen before sat next to me, and this weird smell overwhelmed me. It was like that stale smell that didn't smell bad but also smelled old and musty. So Tina was a few grades above me, but older. Other than that, nothing stood out about her. She looked like every other kid in school. The only off thing was the way she smelled, because it was something I'd never smelled before. I don't remember how we became friends, but we did. And after like a week of knowing each other, she told me on a Monday she had a secret she had to tell me the following Tuesday. I was hyped for a week waiting, and then the day finally came around, she told me she was a vampire. Now, at 6 years old, I didn't know what a vampire was, and that they were not real, and only in cartoons like Adventure Time. So when she said this, I knew she was lying, and I was just confused. But then I told her I didn't believe her. She said she'd prove it to me. And this is something I'll never forget because I remember it so vividly. She told me that vampires grant wishes, which was something I had never heard about vampires, so I didn't believe that either. But she insisted and said that if I wished to become a vampire, she would make me one, and that would prove she was a vampire. So since I didn't believe her, I agreed and wished I was a vampire. And she snapped her fingers and took me to look in the bus driver's front mirror, and since I was sitting on the outside toward the aisle, I leaned out and saw nothing in the mirror. I started freaking out, and I'm telling you, I don't know if that girl was a magician or what happened, but I was not in that mirror. So I start freaking out. She calms me down and tells me to wish not to be a vampire. And I do, and my reflection was back in the mirror. After that, I believed her and started picking up on other details. For one, she didn't have fangs. She had those lucky teeth that Kristen Dunst has, where the canines aren't sharp, but stick out from the front, which gave her a lisp. She also didn't ride the bus in the afternoon unless it was raining or the sun wasn't out, and I mean that with no exaggeration. She never rode the bus on a sunny day. She was committed to the bit. The last thing that became an occurrence was that she would regularly remind me not to tell anyone she was a vampire, or she'd wish I never existed. This didn't really scare me, but it was kind of off-putting. Like, okay girl, I won't. So about a week after the wish thing, she told me that I could get one wish every Tuesday. I wish I could tell y'all what I wished for, but if I remember correctly, I would tell her I couldn't think of a wish every time for some reason. I don't know why, I just remember being like, I don't know, let me think. And then the next day, I'd have a wish and she'd be like, girl, it's Wednesday, so no. I never got bad vibes from her or anything either. It just felt like I was the only one who knew her generally, since no one else talked to her on the bus, and we were in different grades. I never saw her once we stepped off the bus. Generally, for a long time after all of this, I figured that this was a young girl who had seen Twilight and was obsessed, but then I remember what happened the last time I saw her. The last time I saw her was a Tuesday, and instead of granting me a wish, she told me that there was a monster party happening that night. She wanted me to sneak out of my house and come. I was intrigued, but didn't really comment, just went, okay, sure. I asked her where it was, and she said it had come to me in a dream, because that's how vampires keep secrets. And I just kind of forgot about the whole thing once I got off the bus, since I had no intention intention of going anywhere since I was 6. Anyways, after forgetting about it all day, when I went to sleep that night, I had a crazy dream. I dreamed I was at a party, and there were many stereotypical monsters there. They weren't exaggerated to be scary, they literally just looked like their own 90s movie counterparts as I walked through the room. So it just looked like a bunch of monsters drinking from breadcrumbs like I saw on TV. As I walked through, I saw a vampire who looked like Dracula. As I walked through to reach him, I noticed that there was a big hole in the middle of the floor that looked like a cliff behind him. When I got to him, he said something to me that I remembered for a long time, but recently forgot. It was nothing scary, just a remark like, "Oh, you made it," or something along those lines. As we were talking, he moved in a way that I followed to hear what he was saying, not realizing that he was turning me around so that the cliff was now next to me. At some point, I ended up slipping and holding onto the cliff with both hands, begging him to let me out, and he just stood there for a bit. There was no urgency in the dream at all, from me asking for help to him not moving at all. It all felt very calm. Eventually, he bent down and started to lift my fingers up so that I wasn't gripping the cliff, until eventually I fell to my death. Now, the way my dreams work is that they play out like a movie, so they're not in first person. And while I never see my own face, I see various perspectives. So when I fell, it was as if a camera watched me go down and hit the ground. The dream didn't end when I hit the ground either. It kind of stayed, and I saw myself on the ground dead. It was so surreal, to think about, because it was so randomly graphic, and nothing surrounding my interactions with her before that ever gave anything sinister, besides her last interaction with me leading up to the dream. After that night, I never saw her again, although it took me a couple of years to realise her connection to my dream. That smell has never left me, and neither have the dreams, since I never remember my dreams and can only recount like 5 I've had. I occasionally get reminded of the whole thing when I meet someone who smells like her, which has maybe been 4 times since.